At first glance, it looked like a familiar royal tradition, the kind of ceremony Britain has witnessed for generations. The crowds were cheering, the uniforms were immaculate, and King Charles III was the man everyone had gathered to celebrate. Yet before the morning was over, something unexpected happened. The attention of thousands began drifting away from the monarch and toward another figure entirely, and that shift raised a question that has only grown louder ever since. Trooping the Color 2026 was supposed to be a celebration of continuity. Instead, for many royal watchers, it became a glimpse into the future. As the procession moved down the mall, all eyes should have been fixed on the king's carriage. Yet behind it rode Prince William, the Prince of Wales, mounted on horseback in full ceremonial uniform, projecting an image that many observers found impossible to ignore. There was nothing unusual about his role. As Colonel of the Welsh Guards, riding in the parade was part of his duty. The position was expected. The protocol was familiar. But perception is often more powerful than protocol. The future king appeared calm, composed, and entirely at ease in a role that seemed to extend beyond the day's official responsibilities. As images from the event spread across television broadcasts, newspaper front pages, and social media feeds, a new conversation quietly emerged. Were people simply watching an heir carry out his duties, or were they witnessing a monarchy gradually preparing the public for its next chapter? That question became even more intriguing because of where William appeared in relation to the rest of the royal family. Ahead of many senior royals, riding prominently through the capital, the Prince of Wales projected an image of leadership that resonated far beyond ceremonial tradition. Viewers noticed the symbolism immediately. The bright red tunic, the ceremonial sword, the bearskin cap, and the confident posture created a picture that some commentators described as remarkably king-like. Yet another detail complicated the story. While William commanded attention on horseback, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was positioned elsewhere in the procession. Traveling in a separate carriage alongside Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, she represented a different but equally important aspect of the monarchy's future. If William embodied leadership and succession, Catherine embodied stability and continuity. And that distinction may have mattered more than many initially realized. The Princess of Wales appeared elegant and composed as she made her way through London, wearing a carefully chosen ensemble that immediately attracted attention from royal enthusiasts. Some observers even noted visual similarities between her appearance and iconic moments associated with Diana, Princess of Wales. Whether intentional or not, such comparisons inevitably reignited memories of one of the most beloved figures in modern royal history. But why were people making those comparisons now? Part of the answer lies in timing. The royal family has endured a turbulent period unlike any experienced in recent decades. Public disagreements, health concerns, institutional pressures, and questions about the monarchy's future have created an atmosphere of uncertainty that continues to shape public discussion. Against that backdrop, appearances are no longer viewed as simple ceremonial obligations. Every gesture, every position in a procession, and every public appearance is examined for signs of a deeper narrative. And nowhere was that more apparent than in the contrast between father and son. King Charles III traveled in a carriage once again, continuing a pattern that has existed for several years. Meanwhile, the Prince of Wales rode on horseback, participating in one of the most physically demanding and visually commanding roles within the ceremony. For some viewers, the difference was merely practical. For others, it appeared symbolic. The symbolism became even harder to ignore because questions surrounding the king's health have never fully disappeared from public discussion. Although Buckingham Palace has continued to emphasize the monarch's commitment to his duties, many royal commentators have pointed to the increasingly visible role William has played across numerous areas of royal life. International engagements, diplomatic appearances, charitable initiatives, and institutional leadership have all contributed to a growing perception that the Prince of Wales is assuming greater responsibility behind the scenes. But is that perception accurate? Or are people simply projecting future expectations onto a prince who has spent his entire life preparing for the throne? That question sits at the center of a fascinating debate unfolding across Britain and the Commonwealth. On one side are those who believe the monarchy is entering a carefully managed transition period, with William gradually becoming the public face of the institution while his father continues to reign. On the other side are those who argue that such interpretations are exaggerated, insisting that the Prince of Wales is simply fulfilling responsibilities that naturally belong to the heir. Yet there is one fact neither side can ignore. When Trooping the Colour ended, many people were no longer discussing the parade itself. They were discussing what the images seemed to represent. The future of the monarchy suddenly felt closer, more tangible, and perhaps more immediate than it had before. And if that was the impression created by a single ceremonial appearance, what might happen when attention shifts from symbolism to the decisions being made behind palace walls? Because according to several royal observers, the most significant developments may not have occurred on the parade route at all. They may have been unfolding quietly, away from public view, where questions about leadership, responsibility, and the future of the crown are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. And that is where the story becomes far more complicated. What made the images from Trooping the Colour so significant was not what happened in public, but what they appeared to reveal about developments taking place behind palace walls. Ceremonies can be carefully choreographed, yet they often become powerful because they expose realities that official statements never directly address. And in the days following the parade, a growing number of royal commentators began focusing on one question that seemed impossible to ignore. If Prince William is increasingly being viewed as the monarchy's future, how much influence is he already exercising today? The answer may be more substantial than many people realize. Over the past several years, the Prince of Wales has quietly expanded his involvement in areas that traditionally define long-term royal leadership rather than short-term ceremonial duty. While public attention often gravitates towards speeches, appearances, and major events, the true influence of a future monarch is usually measured elsewhere, through relationships, institutional planning, charitable priorities, diplomatic engagement, and the ability to shape the direction of the crown without appearing overtly political. Observers have noted that William's approach differs noticeably from previous generations. Rather than attempting to maintain a vast portfolio of causes and patronages, the heir has increasingly concentrated on a smaller number of issues where measurable results can be demonstrated. His work surrounding homelessness, environmental innovation, mental health, and early childhood development reflects a philosophy that appears less focused on symbolic advocacy and more focused on practical outcomes. That distinction may seem subtle, but within royal circles it represents a potentially significant evolution. And if that evolution continues, what might it mean for the monarchy itself? That question becomes even more intriguing when viewed through the lens of public expectations. The institution today faces challenges very different from those encountered during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Modern audiences demand transparency, relevance, and authenticity in ways previous generations never did. Public trust can rise and fall within days, driven by social media, political polarization, and rapidly changing cultural values. In such an environment, simply preserving tradition may no longer be enough. Many royal analysts believe the next generation will be required to demonstrate not only continuity, but also adaptability. William appears acutely aware of that reality. His public engagements often emphasize solutions, partnerships, and measurable impact rather than grand symbolism alone. While the ceremonial elements of monarchy remain essential, there are signs that the future king sees relevance as equally important to survival. Yet another factor complicates the picture. Unlike many previous heirs, the Prince of Wales is preparing for leadership during a period when the institution faces pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. Debates surrounding the future of the Commonwealth continue to emerge across several nations. Questions about royal funding, constitutional relevance, and modernization remain active subjects of discussion. Even among supporters of the monarchy, opinions differ on how quickly reform should occur. As a result, William is not simply preparing to inherit a throne. He is preparing to inherit a debate, and perhaps nowhere is that challenge more visible than within the broader royal family itself. While official appearances often project unity, recent years have demonstrated how personal relationships can influence public perceptions of the institution. The continuing distance between Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, and senior working royals remains one of the most discussed issues surrounding the family. Although much of the public focus is centered on individual disagreements, The larger question concerns something far more consequential. What happens when differing visions of monarchy collide? The contrast has become increasingly apparent. On one side stands a streamlined model centered around duty, continuity, and institutional stability. On the other stands a more independent approach that prioritizes personal autonomy and freedom from royal constraints. The tension between those visions extends far beyond any single relationship because it touches on a fundamental issue facing the monarchy in the 21st century. How does an ancient institution remain relevant while preserving the traditions that define it? That challenge becomes even more complex when considering the role of Catherine, Princess of Wales. While much attention focuses on William's future responsibilities, many royal insiders argue that the princess may be one of the monarchy's most valuable assets during the coming transition. Her return to public duties following her own health challenges has been met with considerable public warmth, but the significance extends beyond popularity. Catherine provides something every successful royal era has required: stability during uncertainty. Throughout modern royal history, periods of transition have often depended upon trusted partnerships. Queen Elizabeth II had Prince Philip. King George VI relied heavily on Queen Elizabeth, later known as the Queen Mother. Increasingly, observers view the Prince and Princess of Wales through a similar lens, not because they are attempting to replicate the past, but because they appear to understand the importance of presenting a united and dependable image during a period of institutional change. And there may be evidence that the strategy is already influencing public perception. Polls and public surveys conducted over recent years have consistently suggested that William and Catherine enjoy strong levels of support across multiple demographics. More importantly, they often perform particularly well among younger audiences who have historically been less engaged with royal affairs. For a monarchy concerned about long-term relevance, that trend carries enormous significance. But popularity alone does not guarantee success. History is filled with public figures who entered positions of leadership with strong support only to discover that governing expectations are far more demanding than earning them. The Prince of Wales appears aware of that reality, which may explain why his preparation has been so deliberate and measured. Still, one question remains unanswered. If the public is already beginning to view William as the monarchy's future, how is King Charles himself approaching that transition? Is the gradual shift in attention simply the natural consequence of succession, or is a more deliberate transfer of responsibility already taking shape behind the scenes? Because according to several royal commentators, the relationship between father and son may hold the key to understanding what happens next. And the developments reportedly taking place away from public view could prove far more consequential than anything witnessed on Parade Day. If the relationship between King Charles III and the Prince of Wales holds the key to understanding the monarchy's future, then the most revealing aspect of the story may not be what the public can see at all. For centuries, royal transitions have rarely begun on the day a crown changes heads. More often, they begin years earlier through subtle adjustments in influence, responsibility, and trust. By the time the public notices, the process is usually already well underway. That possibility has led many royal historians to revisit an interesting pattern that has appeared throughout British history. The monarchy survives not because it remains unchanged, but because it adapts before circumstances force it to do so. Queen Victoria gradually relied on trusted advisors during her later years. King George VI prepared Princess Elizabeth for responsibilities long before she became queen. Even Queen Elizabeth II increasingly entrusted major duties to her heir during the final stages of her reign. None of these transitions happened overnight. They unfolded gradually, almost invisibly, until one day the new reality simply seemed natural. Could something similar be happening now? That question becomes particularly compelling when examining the apparent relationship between Charles and his eldest son. Publicly, there has been little indication of tension regarding succession planning. In fact, the opposite appears true. The king has consistently elevated William's profile, allowing him to take ownership of major initiatives and represent the institution on increasingly significant occasions. Yet this raises another question. Why would a monarch willingly allow attention to drift toward his successor unless he believed it served a larger purpose? The answer may lie in the unique challenges facing the crown today. Unlike previous generations, the The royal family now operates under constant scrutiny. Every decision is analyzed in real time. Every appearance generates thousands of interpretations within hours. In such an environment, uncertainty can quickly become a problem. Stability, on the other hand, becomes a strategic asset. By presenting a visible and capable heir, the institution may be reinforcing confidence in its future regardless of what challenges arise in the present. And that brings us to a fascinating contradiction. While much of the public conversation focuses on the possibility of change, many of the decisions being made behind the scenes appear designed to prevent disruption altogether. The monarchy does not thrive on surprises. It thrives on continuity. Even moments that appear dramatic from the outside are often carefully managed to ensure that the institution remains larger than any individual member of the family. That philosophy may explain why William's public image has evolved so noticeably in recent years. Earlier in his life, the Prince of Wales was frequently portrayed through the lens of youth, family, and future potential. Today, the emphasis appears increasingly centered on leadership, responsibility, and institutional stewardship. The difference is subtle, but meaningful. Potential inspires hope. Leadership inspires confidence. And confidence is precisely what the monarchy requires during periods of uncertainty. Yet there is another layer to this story that receives far less attention. Behind every future king stands a future court. Royal transitions are not simply about one individual assuming a new role. They involve advisors, private secretaries, communications teams, charitable organizations, military connections, diplomatic relationships, and countless institutional structures that must evolve alongside the person at the center. When observers discuss William's growing influence, they are often focusing on the visible figure while overlooking the network quietly developing around him. That network matters because it shapes priorities. It influences which issues receive attention, which projects gain momentum, and which long-term goals define a future reign. Some commentators believe that the Prince of Wales has already begun assembling a modernized framework that reflects his own vision of service, one designed to preserve the monarchy's relevance without abandoning its traditions. If true, the implications could extend far beyond ceremonial appearances. A future reign influenced by these priorities would likely place greater emphasis on measurable impact, public engagement, and strategic modernization. Such an approach could help strengthen public support among younger generations while maintaining the continuity valued by older audiences. But modernization is rarely without resistance. Every institution contains competing perspectives about how much change is necessary and how quickly it should occur. Some believe reform is essential for long-term survival. Others worry that moving too far from established traditions risks weakening the very qualities that make the monarchy unique. This tension creates one of the most intriguing dynamics within the royal story. The future king is often described as a modernizer, yet he also appears deeply committed to preserving the institution he will inherit. Those goals are not mutually exclusive, but balancing them requires extraordinary political sensitivity, particularly within an organization where symbolism carries immense importance. And perhaps that explains why William's public approach has remained so measured. Rather than announcing sweeping visions for the future, he appears to be building credibility step by step, responsibility by responsibility, allowing public confidence to grow organically rather than demanding it. It is a strategy that requires patience, but history suggests patience has often served the monarchy well. Still, one crucial piece of the puzzle remains unresolved. The public sees official appearances, carefully prepared speeches, and ceremonial events. What remains largely hidden are the private conversations taking place among senior members of the royal household. Those discussions are where the future is actually shaped, where responsibilities are assigned, priorities are debated, and contingency plans are developed. And according to several royal commentators, the significance of those conversations may be greater now than at any point since the beginning of Charles's reign. Because if Trooping the Color offered a glimpse of a monarchy preparing for tomorrow, the developments unfolding away from the cameras may reveal something even more consequential. The real story may not be about a prince riding confidently through London, but about decisions already being made regarding what kind of monarchy Britain will eventually inherit. And if those decisions are further advanced than the public realizes, then the next chapter could completely reshape how that remarkable appearance on parade day is ultimately remembered. What makes this moment so consequential is that the monarchy no longer has the luxury of preparing for the future in isolation. Every decision now unfolds under constant observation, and every adjustment in responsibility is immediately scrutinized for clues about what may come next. That reality has created an unusual situation inside the institution. Even if no formal transition is taking place, the pressure to demonstrate readiness has never been greater. The challenge facing the royal household is not simply one of succession. It is one of confidence. For generations, the monarchy has depended on public belief that the institution remains stable regardless of personal circumstances affecting individual family members. Yet stability becomes harder to project when the public begins asking questions faster than official answers can be provided. Each appearance by senior royals is now interpreted through a wider lens. Viewers are no longer watching only the event itself. They are searching for evidence of what it means. And that shift has had consequences. Following Trooping the Color, discussions increasingly focused not on tradition, but on preparedness. Royal commentators began examining whether the next generation was already operating at a level normally associated with a future reign. Newspapers, television panels, and online forums all arrived at different conclusions, yet they shared one common observation. The spotlight surrounding the Prince and Princess of Wales appeared stronger than ever. That growing attention presents both opportunities and risks. On one hand, heightened public confidence in the heir provides reassurance during uncertain times. On the other, it inevitably creates expectations that may be difficult to manage. The more people view William as the embodiment of the monarchy's future, the more every decision, speech, and appearance becomes a test of leadership rather than a routine engagement. And leadership is rarely judged in calm periods. It is judged during moments of pressure. That reality may explain why recent years have quietly become one of the most demanding periods in the Prince of Wales's life. Beyond public appearances, he has had to navigate a series of overlapping challenges that would test any future monarch. Family tensions, health concerns affecting senior members of the royal family, constitutional questions across parts of the Commonwealth, and ongoing debates about the relevance of the institution have all converged at the same time. What is remarkable is not that these pressures exist. It is that they have emerged simultaneously. Historically, royal transitions tend to occur against a relatively clear backdrop. One reign ends, another begins, and the institution adapts accordingly. The current situation is more complicated. The monarchy is being asked to modernize while preserving continuity. It must remain visible while avoiding controversy. It must project strength while acknowledging vulnerability. Balancing those competing demands requires careful calculation. And nowhere is that balancing act more evident than in the evolving role of Catherine. While much public discussion focuses on constitutional questions and institutional leadership, royal strategists understand something equally important. Public trust is often shaped by personal connection. Throughout modern history, some of the monarchy's most successful periods have coincided with figures capable of creating emotional bonds with the public. The Princess of Wales occupies a uniquely influential position in that regard. Her return to a more visible schedule has reassured many supporters of the crown, but the significance extends beyond appearances. Catherine has become a symbol of resilience during a period marked by uncertainty. In many respects, she bridges two worlds simultaneously. She represents continuity with the monarchy's traditions while also embodying values that resonate with contemporary audiences. That combination is exceptionally valuable, yet it also increases expectations surrounding the couple's future role. If public sentiment continues moving in their favor, pressure will grow for them to provide answers to broader questions facing the institution. What kind of monarchy should Britain expect in the coming decades? How much modernization is appropriate? Which traditions remain essential, and which may need to evolve? Those questions have no simple answers. And they become even more sensitive when viewed through the perspective of senior palace officials responsible for safeguarding the institution itself. From their standpoint, every transition carries risk. Move too slowly, and the monarchy may appear disconnected from changing public expectations. Move too quickly, and it may alienate supporters who value continuity above all else. The challenge is finding a path that satisfies both priorities without weakening either. This is why seemingly symbolic events often attract disproportionate attention. They provide rare opportunities to observe how the institution presents itself when confronted with uncertainty. The images from Trooping the Color did more than showcase pageantry. They offered a snapshot of a monarchy navigating a delicate balancing act between present realities and future expectations. And that balancing act is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Across Britain, conversations that once seemed hypothetical are beginning to feel more immediate. Discussions about future leadership are no longer confined to royal enthusiasts or constitutional experts. They are entering mainstream public discourse. The reason is simple. People sense that the institution may be approaching a defining period, even if no one can yet say exactly when or how that period will unfold. That uncertainty is precisely what makes the current moment so fascinating. Because the monarchy's greatest strength has always been its ability to adapt without appearing to change too quickly. Yet there are times in history when gradual evolution suddenly becomes visible, when developments that once occurred quietly behind palace walls begin revealing themselves in public. Many observers believe that Britain may be approaching such a moment now. If they are correct, then the significance of Trooping the Color extends far beyond a single parade. It becomes part of a larger story about preparation, responsibility, and the future direction of one of the world's most enduring institutions. And that brings us to the question at the center of everything. If the public is already beginning to see the outline of a new era taking shape, what does that reveal about the monarchy's long-term plans? More importantly, what happens if the pace of events accelerates faster than anyone anticipated? Because the final piece of this puzzle may not concern appearances, symbolism, or perception at all. It may concern the deeper reality of what the royal family believes is coming next, and why that realization could change the entire meaning of everything we have discussed so far. And perhaps that is the realization that ultimately matters most. For all the discussion surrounding ceremonial appearances, succession planning, public perception, and institutional strategy, the deeper story emerging from this moment is not really about a parade, a photograph, or even a single royal figure. It is about a monarchy standing at the intersection of two eras, attempting to preserve its historic identity while simultaneously preparing for a future that will look very different from the one it inherited. That is why so many royal observers paid attention to what happened at Trooping the Color. Not because anyone believes a formal transition is imminent, and not because a single public appearance can reveal the full reality behind palace walls, but because events like these often provide rare glimpses into how an institution sees itself. The monarchy communicates through symbolism as much as it does through statements. Sometimes what matters most is not what is announced, but what is quietly demonstrated. And what many people believe they witnessed was confidence. Confidence that the next generation is prepared. Confidence that responsibility is being absorbed successfully. Confidence that continuity exists regardless of the challenges currently facing the institution. Whether that interpretation proves entirely accurate remains to be seen, but the fact that so many people arrived at a similar conclusion is significant in itself. After all, public perception has always played an extraordinary role in royal history. A monarch may reign by law and tradition, but long-term success often depends upon something less tangible. It depends upon public trust, the ability of the crown to survive wars, political upheavals, economic crises, and cultural transformation has frequently rested upon whether people believe the institution remained capable of adapting without losing its purpose. That challenge now belongs to a new generation. The Prince of Wales is not preparing to inherit the same monarchy that previous heirs inherited. The world moves faster. Expectations are higher. Public scrutiny is more intense. Every decision is examined through social media, global news coverage, and instant commentary from millions of people. Future leadership will require far more than ceremonial expertise. It will demand resilience, discipline, strategic vision, and an understanding of how modern audiences connect with public institutions. What makes William's position particularly unique is that he appears to understand this reality. Throughout his public life, he has often favored a measured approach rather than dramatic gestures. That tendency may not generate headlines every day, but it reflects an important principle. Enduring institutions are rarely transformed through sudden revolutions. More often, they evolve through gradual adjustments that become visible only when viewed across years rather than weeks. And that may be exactly what is happening now. When historians eventually look back on this period, they They may conclude that the most important developments were not the ones dominating newspaper headlines at the time. Instead, they may focus on the quieter shifts occurring beneath the surface. The gradual redistribution of responsibility, the strengthening of public confidence in future leadership, the emergence of a royal couple increasingly viewed not as heirs in waiting, but as central figures in the monarchy's next chapter. That possibility carries implications extending far beyond one family. The British monarchy remains one of the world's most recognizable institutions. Its decisions influence relationships across the Commonwealth, shape diplomatic symbolism, and affect how millions of people understand national identity and tradition. Whenever a generational transition approaches, the consequences inevitably extend beyond palace gates. And that is why this story matters. The discussion is not simply about who will wear the crown one day. It is about what kind of monarchy Britain will inherit when that day eventually arrives. Will the institution continue adapting to modern expectations while preserving its historic foundations? Can it maintain relevance across younger generations while retaining the loyalty of long-standing supporters? And can it navigate an increasingly complex world without losing the qualities that have allowed it to endure for centuries? Those questions remain unanswered. Yet the events surrounding trooping the colors suggest they are no longer theoretical questions reserved for historians and constitutional experts. They are becoming active considerations, shaping how the monarchy presents itself today. Perhaps that explains why so many people found themselves watching Prince William more closely than expected. What began as a ceremonial appearance gradually became something larger in the public imagination. For some, it represented reassurance. For others, preparation. For still others, it was simply another example of a future king carrying out duties he has spent a lifetime preparing to perform. But regardless of which interpretation proves correct, one conclusion seems increasingly difficult to dismiss. The conversation surrounding the monarchy is changing. The focus is expanding beyond the present and toward what comes next. And as that shift continues, moments that once seemed routine may be remembered as early signs of a broader transformation already taking shape. In the end, trooping the color may never be remembered primarily for the military precision, the royal procession, or even the celebrations themselves. It may instead be remembered as the day many people looked beyond the reigning monarch and began seriously contemplating the future waiting just beyond the horizon. And perhaps that is the real mystery at the heart of the story. Were people simply watching a prince perform his duty, or were they witnessing the quiet emergence of a new royal era long before it officially arrived? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the royal family, Prince William, Catherine, Princess of Wales, King Charles III, Princess and the future of the monarchy, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next royal analysis. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Because sometimes history does not announce its arrival with a coronation, it begins with a moment that only reveals its true significance years later.